have just taught me, that when you might not enjoy what you're doing right now, but if you live in the future and see that what you're doing right now is actually going to benefit your life as a whole, not just happiness, but whether it is happiness, financial freedom, your goals for sports, your goals for just life in general, then
Mhm.
that's what's worth doing right now.
This episode of the Smart Athlete Podcast is brought to you by Solpre, skincare for athletes. Whether you're in the gym, on the mats, on the road, or in the pool, we protect your skin so you're more comfortable in your own body. To learn more, go to solpre.com.
Today on the show, my guest is currently a competitive amateur triathlete. At one time, he had hopes of being an Olympic swimmer, and we're definitely going to get into that. As far as I know, he is currently an avionics engineer at General Atomics. Welcome to the show, Bryful Sun.
Nice to meet you.
So, triathlon now, swimming before. Have you already been in the pool today?
I have not, but I have plans on going to the pool right after this. So
Oh, okay. Are you feeling the guilt? Like, I need to get in the
yeah,
water. I need to get in the water.
just a little bit. Yeah. So I actually slept in a little bit and didn't get into the pool even though I was supposed to this morning. So I was feeling really bad, and I kind of almost forgot about the this podcast until a couple hours ago, and then I'm like, oh, I have to push back the swim even more. Getting the guilt's just kicking in.
I appreciate you coming on. Actually, I have I need to shoot a video later today about like, it's for running, but it applies here too. It's like
Yeah.
reasons you should run in the morning, and one of the reasons like so you get it done is out of the way, and like life doesn't get
Right.
in the way.
Yeah.
And I always found that that like I just forgot the word, that like impending sense of doom like
Oh yeah.
closes in on me the later the day it gets when I haven't got
Right.
things done.
Right. It applies for both your work, academics, and sports. Just like you always, and I'm the worst procrastinator of all time. And no matter for what, doesn't matter if I'm studying for an exam or I have a race coming up, I'm waiting until the last minute. But as long as you get it done. So that's my philosophy.
I guess so, but like where like this is something that's always it's always curious to me because like sometimes I'll procrastinate about something and other times I'm like right on it, but I'm not quite sure what it is that differentiates it. Like, do you know like do you have any idea where that comes from? Like what like why procrastinate versus just getting out of the way since you know you need to do it?
Yeah. I mean, it all depends. For me, it depends on the difficulty of the task at hand, uh, first of all, and then secondly, just how motivated I am,
Hmm.
and I think that motivation for anything in life is very important, and doesn't matter whether you're doing sports or academics. If you're not motivated, even if your grade is on the line, like your GPA, you're not gonna want to do it until the last minute. Then you're like, okay, I guess I do kind of care about this,
Yeah.
so I have to do it. Whereas if I have a race coming up, and I really want to do well at this race,
Hmm.
and I have my friends supporting me. I have training that I need to complete to make sure that I do well at this race. I'm gonna stick by my schedule and try to get as many workouts done at the exact time that I have them scheduled.
Hmm.
So, a lot of the races, when you're doing like a regional race that you don't care about too much, you're just doing it to see where you're at. When you're not that motivated for those races, your training can kind of fall behind, and that's sometimes where I fall into that hole of just, oh yeah, I'll do both of my doubles after work at 6 o'clock, which is not really what you should be doing because then you're messing up your diet and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, if you're motivated for something, then you're gonna say, okay, I am gonna wake up at this time before work and get this done, and I'm going to have the motivation after work to still have the energy to complete this as well. So yeah.
Have you I'm gonna jump off the deep end here. Have you read the 4 Hour Workweek? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I feel like there's a lot of those kind of books that are out there at the
Yeah.
moment. I don't know the specific one, but I'm assuming it's just talking about like how if you decrease the amount of hours in each week, you can get more done as a whole.
It's kind of in general, it's about like it's a business building book. So it's like about building a business that is systemized in such a way that it requires low input hours from you, so you can do more of
Yeah,
the tasks that you like. So that's kind of my leading into like it seems like the procrastination comes from like a low prioritization of
right.
things. Like like I can do it or I can not do it, and I do that too. I've got my to-do list every day, my whole week planned out, and however many tasks each day. And sometimes I
Right.
end up running out of time, and I'm like, I don't really need to do that task, and it ends up just like disappearing. So I
Yeah.
think I kind of think with like, as busy as I think you are, like how do you prioritize doing more stuff that you want to do?
Right. It all goes down back to in like just basic human psyche, you know. My parents have always told me this, but you always want to do something to feel better in the long run, right? But
Mhm.
as humans, you don't really that doesn't just cross your mind at every passing moment, you know. You're always trying to I don't hate to sound cliche, but live your life at the moment, you know,
Right.
and have fun, you know, and if that means putting aside some of the chores or difficult tasks that you know eventually you're gonna have to complete, but if those jeopardize the fun you're currently having, a lot of times you're just gonna be like, no, I just don't feel like doing that, you know,
Mhm.
like I am gonna get it done, and I want to enjoy myself right now, so why don't I just suffer for a long time for a bit at the end, you know, and have a lot of fun now, so.
Yeah. Well, it's like,
I'm, it's a bad mentality, but it's just it's difficult to it's difficult to put aside that and actually get stuff done. But that's what I'll say. When you're motivated to do something, that's when you're more likely to actually perform those tasks. So
well, it seems like, and I think you kind of touched on it. It seems like a lot of people live. I have a hard time living in the future. Like I'm pretty good at delaying gratification. Like let's do the suffering now, and I'll reap the rewards later. But I have
right,
a hard time actually enjoying the rewards right now that I, worked for previously. I'm always like
right.
always future focused. It seems like you found some kind of balance between like
Hmm.
I hate this phrase like YOLO.
Gosh,
I hate it. I hate it so bad.
oh
Um,
man.
but between living right now and living in the future, so like is that something your parents instilled in you or
Yeah, so it's just they've they've been pretty traditional in a lot of things and have just taught me, you know, that when you're you might not enjoy what you're doing right now, but if you live in the future and see that what you're doing right now is actually going to benefit your life as a whole, not just happiness, but whether it is happiness, financial freedom, you know, your goals for sports, you know, your goals for just life in general, then
Mhm.
that's what's worth doing right now. You know, if and that's something that goes to you know what my parents would support me as well emotionally and financially when I was a child. You know, my parents are pretty strict on a lot of things, but if there was something that you know they thought would benefit me in my later life, you know,
Mhm.
and that's how I got into swimming, triathlons, and track everything. My music life, but none of that stuff is cheap. You know, takes a lot of time investment on both my end, on their end. But
Mhm.
I and my parents thought that that's something that's gonna make me happier in my later life, and that's something that'll benefit me as a human being. And you know, we put in all the time and effort we wanted into that. So
This is like this is something I was curious about. Like, so did your parents get you into swimming, or was it like were you interested and then they were behind it?
so it was really interesting. I'm sure a lot of kids go through this, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I
Mhm.
started my you can call it sporting life when I was about 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
I first started playing soccer, and then did that for maybe a half year, and realized that I had no foot coordination at all, and I just kept getting either sidelined or goalied in every game
Okay.
because I was a pretty chunky kid back then, and my coach was just like, "Oh, you got to use your physical strengths." I'm like, "Okay, so you're calling me fat?
Stick
Thanks." All
stick
right.
you stick you in the goal a little bit
Yeah.
wider. The ball has more
Right.
to go around.
Exactly. And then yeah, after that I played basketball for a little bit. That was fun, but I could never get really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
I really
Well, how
enjoyed
tall are
it.
you?
But right now I'm 5'9", 5. I like to say 5'10", but
Yeah, so
realistically
it's
I'm
like even
close
if
to
you got
5'9".
good, you could play in college, but that's about
Yeah,
as far as you're gonna go.
right. And my parents pretty much knew that too. My dad is, I think he's 5'4", 5'5", and he's the tallest person besides me in the family. So
Okay.
yeah, well I knew I was going nowhere with that, but that was fun. And then after that, I uh, I tried a couple more sports. I dipped my toes into basically every sport that was available. But eventually I found swimming when I was 7, 8 years old, and
This seems like a lot of
I
sports to go through by the time you're 7.
right. No, I just like, window shopped every sport in the book. But when I was about to turn 8, I think I was 7. I found the pool and I started swimming, and I my first couple months of swimming, I really hated it. Um, I I just had no joy in doing it. I don't think I was very good. But
Mhm.
then when I turned 8, I joined this team called Montgomery YMCA Barracudas, the Barracuda swim team in
Mhm.
Montgomery, my hometown in Alabama. And my progress exploded from there. I went from not being able to swim at all to breaking team records in a matter of 6 or 7 months,
Mhm.
to qualifying for regionals and Southeastern championships in Nashville. It was held every year.
Mhm.
And by the time I was, I'd say 11 or 12, at the time, I realized this was something that I was, number one, I was good at, and two, I actually did thoroughly enjoy. And
Mhm.
that put me into a whole, like, up until the point where I was 12, I was just doing it just really to stay in shape. More so my parents being like, "Oh yeah, you need to not look like you did when you were 6 or 7." So
Your
and
parents
just,
were calling you fat instead of
oh
staying
yeah,
in the
no,
pool.
it was bad, but so when I was 12, about to turn 13, it transitioned from me just staying in shape
Mhm.
to the point where this was going to potentially be what I would strive to do. When I was 13, I was like, okay, my goal is to go to the Olympics, right? And I still kept improving after I was 12, 13. I made a couple of national standard times, competed in Y nationals when I was 14, and then qualified for some junior Olympic national qualifying times. And I was like, okay, this is it. Like, if I keep up with this, I could make it, And
Mhm.
at this time, 14, 15, it was rough. I was going to high school, and I was swimming on average probably 11, 12 times a week some weeks.
Mhm.
And that entails waking up at 3:45, 4 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, which I certainly didn't enjoy. But that's going back to the motivation part. If I wasn't motivated, I would not do that.
Right.
I wanted my goal, and swimming is one of those sports. I've done a lot of every competitive sport I've done up until this point. It's just you're putting in so much work, and you're getting potentially nothing in return, as
Right.
far as progression. And I'll talk about it later, but especially in track, even more so because it's just even more compacted, the
Mhm.
race times. But in swimming, I practiced that many hours a week, and I was slowly progressing towards that goal. Um, but yeah, after my junior senior year, I kind of hit a wall. I got really close to Olympic trial standard times, but I just could not. I could not get past it, and I was literally at the same times. I was a breaststroker, 100, 200 breaststroker,
Okay.
and I think I held the same time for 2 years straight. exactly the same time. And I was putting in more and more training each week. I got like my coach was amazing. We had two or three head coaches that were just holding in my technique. And it's not like I was, um, I was getting weak or anything. I was, if anything, my muscle mass was getting stronger. I had more endurance. It just,
Mhm.
some things I could not get faster, and that's when I stopped swimming before I went to college because I wanted to focus I wanted to focus on something else because I was getting really upset with my progress up until that point. So,
Yeah.
but
Well, I mean,
it's a long progression. So
so I mean, you hit that wall and you're stuck there. And I know I've talked to like collegiate level swim coaches, and they're talking about like when I started swimming in college because I too hated the pool when I was little and just avoided it like the plague.
yeah,
But I did not go back and actually learn how to swim. So I didn't start swimming till college. And then, in that early, stage when you completely suck and then you're getting some fitness, it was like I could be knocking off, a second per 100 every month,
right,
which feels great because you're like killing it. But then,
yeah.
yeah, you hit that wall and you're like trying to figure out, what happened. Have you done like a mental diagnosis and thought back and said, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, or do you just feel like that was like your genetic wall and you're not getting past
It's a
it?
little bit of both. I like to blame genetics sometimes, but I all the time. I've done three competitive sports where I'm currently doing triathlons, but my two previous sports, swimming and triathlon, I got to that really, 99th percentile level,
Mhm.
and I just could not break through to become, the absolute ultimate goal I wanted to achieve.
Mhm.
But I think about it all the time. Like, what could I have done differently? And whether it's going back to mental, like I think about it all the time. Sleep, nutrition, stuff like that. What could I have done differently? Could I have if I had done workouts differently, if I put in for track more miles, fewer miles a week, would that
Mhm.
have made a difference? I think about it all the time. But at the end of the day, it's important that I don't beat myself up over it.
Right.
I love the sport when I did it. Up until probably the last couple of months where I was improving, not at all. But
Yeah.
it was definitely what I'm saying is I'm very glad that I did those. It
Yeah.
nurtured so much discipline for other aspects of life. I don't think I would have, if through swimming I was able to, I put in that much time. I was able to juggle so many things in college at once. I basically had no free time in high school and in days where so many people were struggling over finals or where you had to go to class and then do this event and then this sport. It was I didn't get really stressed out over those things because I had so much experience and exposure to basically having my whole day occupied since from an early age. So
Mhm.
it's awesome that I was exposed to that.